Saw the news this morning about Pokemon and immediately thought of our producer, Jackson. It appears though Abby is just as much of a fan as Pokemon.
You know, I will say this unlocked a core memory for me. Me and my brother used to love Pokemon. This is the only thing we talked about back in the day.
As somebody who is a complete, I know nothing about Pokemon. How did Pokemon start as cards? Did it start as a cartoon? Like, what is the origin story of Pokemon?
That's a good question. I don't know what came first. That's like the chicken or the egg conversation.
Yeah.
But it started out also as a TV show, and then it was like made into films. But I think it actually started as a video game, and that's where it originated from.
And if you're new around here, Jackson has told us that he's a big-time collector now. I mean, seriously, spending a lot of time going from store to store looking for these Pokemon cards that could be worth a lot of money.
And why do you think there was the resurgence of the Pokemon cards? Because I remember Pokemon, was it Pokemon Go where people went, you got to catch them all?
Yes.
And people had the app and they were gathering in all these large places and it was creating such a scene and it was like a phenomenon.
That's awesome.
And then all of a sudden it wasn't. And I know the cards were a thing back in the day, but now they're a thing again. So why?
I think that Pokemon does this really good job at playing into the nostalgia factor. So many people around my age, older than me, have this sort of like weird connection to this game and show that we played as a kid. And now a lot of people that are around my age and older are having their own kids and their kids are getting into it too. And so it's just kind of created this resurgence. It also helps that because of the popularity, all the prices of the cards are going up. So then that gets more people involved.
Yeah, I remember playing the OG Pokemon on the big, thick Game Boy that had the purple buttons. And then on my Game Boy Color, and it was so cool. It was green. And so I've kind of like played the games. I don't do Go or the cards, but last night my daughter and son played Pokemon, the Eevee version on our Switch, and it's like cool. It is a thing that millennial parents want to share with their kids, and it's so cool. It started because the inventor of the game loved collecting insects, and so little pocket monsters. So he created a game where you could collect these animals and battle each other.
A couple of years ago, when I was lucky enough to go to Japan, I remember going, and Chad, our engineer, has a kid, and he's like, "Please get me a Pokemon card from Japan. My kid is so into it." So it's either Pokemon or is it Magic the Gathering cards that people are into now also?
Magic the Gathering is another huge
crazy,
one.
Man.
They're all
I feel like y'all are talking a different language.
I had never heard of it until I got to Japan, and then the collections are all over the
And
place.
it's complicated to play. My husband loves it, and I'm lost half the time.
Yeah, Magic is crazy, but the thing, like this trading card world has kind of really blown up. There's these Lorcana cards that are out that are Disney characters that have blown up recently too, and like there's weird amounts of value in all of these things. So I don't know what's going on.
So when you're collecting, are you doing this to like pass down to a generation at one point, or are you gonna cash out?
I always tell myself to justify the spending that I'll cash out eventually when I hit a really big one, but that's just the gambler's mentality in me. To be honest, we're making a little bit of a collection. We've got the binders and the books, and we're putting them in all these protective sleeves, and eventually I want to like make sort of like a giant picture frame of like all the really good ones that we have to like use as a display.
So there could be a lot of money on the line, and that's why this morning's news might be important.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like Pokemon Go and the company behind them was actually sold today. And it's kind of interesting because Pokemon Go, like you were saying, Kristen, was a cultural phenomenon back in 2016. I mean, I always say that that's the closest that we've ever been to world peace was when that game came out, because everybody was out and about doing it. It was like all the buzz, and you saw everyone kind of stupidly walking and staring at their phones.
We were a country united.
We were.
Yes.
Pokemon Go.
I literally remember taking Hollis, I can't remember what age he was, 6 or 7 years old, to Oakland Cemetery and playing there, where there was some unique Pokemon that we were looking for, and the rumor was you could find it in the cemetery.
Exactly.
Do you want to hear a fun conspiracy theory behind Pokemon Go? It's that the company who owned it, think about it. So if you don't know how it works, right, it's on your camera and you have your camera open or like the app open, and then the Pokemon appears in front of you, but it would look like it was standing in this studio. Like you'd be able to see. So the conspiracy theory is that the company behind it, which is not the original makers of Pokemon, I believe, has used it to create, I believe this is true, the most detailed map of the world that exists.
Is that right?
Through the images that you've collected in your camera.
That's crazy, man.
Wow. Yeah. The owners of the game is actually, he's more of an augmented reality first guy, and the game actually came as a secondary thought of like getting people out and walking and having people play this game.
Which you wouldn't think would work in America.
No, you
Get
never
outside,
would.
smell some fresh air and walk. That doesn't really go over well here.
Niantic is the company that owns Pokemon Go. It was developed in conjunction with the Pokemon Company, but it's technically separate. The Pokemon Company that's based out of Japan and also Seattle here in the U.S., they own the intellectual property for the brand and everything like that, but they don't actually, I think they just have a stake in the company that owns Pokemon Go right now. And so that company was just bought out by this company called Scopely for $3.5 billion, if you can believe that, which is pretty wild. There's mixed reviews on how people are kind of viewing this entire transaction, mainly because the company that bought them, called Scopely, is a Saudi Arabian company. One, people are scared about what's going to happen to the data. It's a ton of location data. It's a ton of photo data, things like that. And the second thing is this company's kind of notorious for ruining a lot of games with a ton of microtransactions where you can like pay to win basically within the app itself. And Pokemon Go has notoriously been against that sort of thing. You can spend money on it, but you don't really need to be successful. Whereas in some of their games they do. So people are a little bit worried about what the future is going to look like.
All of this stuff is so layered, man. There's nothing easy anymore.
No, it's all complicated.
So for you and a collector, you don't know. At this point, you're going to still do your thing.
I'm going to do my thing. You know, hopefully it doesn't have too much of an effect on the card market. I've played Pokemon Go intermittently. I'll get obsessed with it for a few months and then put it down. So it kind of depends.
Do you think if you were a collector before you met your woman now, right? Are you guys engaged?
No, not yet.
Okay, your girlfriend. And you told her that you are a Pokemon collector. Do you think she would have really given you a shot at the good stuff?
I think it maybe would have given me more of a shot because the funny thing is she's been a fan forever too, so she's super into it. And her sister-in-law actually works for the Pokemon Company in Seattle.
Oh, get out of here!
Definitely met your person.
Yeah,
I really did.
The couple that Pokemon Go together stay together.
The Bert Show.